Hi all, welcome to the Mind School. Everyone say that money makes the world go around. But let's be more specific. It's actually the US dollar. In every other country in the world, every country that is not the United States, there are basically two currencies that matter. One they use at home and the one they use to trade, which is the US dollar. But it was not always like this. There was a moment where this became the way world do business. The world got together in a rare display of global economic planning and decided that they need to cooperate and we need one currency to trade with. But exactly which currency it would be was up for grabs. And it came down to the fight between two men, one British, one American. The Brit you have probably heard of. If you only know one economist, you know this guy's name, John Maynard Keynes. He had this brilliant utopian dream of a common currency for the world. The other guy, the guy who ended up winning this fight, almost no one knows his name. It's Harry Dexter White. Somehow he managed to outwit John Maynard Keynes and put the US dollar at the center of the world. Today I will tell you how the US dollar won. This all went down in a giant hotel made of white wood in the cool mountains of New Hampshire. The town of Bretton Woods would become famous for what happened in this hotel. It was the end of World War II, and the great economic minds of the world came together to figure out what is next. At Bretton Woods, delegates from 44 allied and associate countries arrived for the opening of the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. The delegates here would create these big global organizations that exist to this day, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. They were trying to put the whole world back together. Even before the war, the global economic system was broken. Countries had mostly stopped trading with each other. First, there was the Depression. The countries put these high trade barriers to try to protect their domestic industries. And there was a bigger problem. The world had gone off the gold standard. Under the gold standard, every country's currency was backed by a precise amount of gold. You knew exactly what a French franc or a US dollar was worth. Gold made trading easy. But without the gold standard, countries could print money. And they did. And the value of the currencies went widely up and down. It was hard to trade when you never knew on any given day what the other guy's currency was worth. So this was the issue they was trying to solve at Bretton Woods. How do we stabilize the world's currency so people can start trading again? There were basically two ideas to deal with this. Two pretty different ideas. Very different men. The first guy, John Maynard Keynes, he arrived at Bretton Woods as the biggest celebrity economist in the world. He wanted something where everyone is included and where, frankly, Britain is not bossed around by the United States. Keynes' rival is an American, Harry Dexter White. He was the Assistant Secretary of the United States Treasury and he was actually the man running the conference. To get countries to trade with each other again, Keynes said that the world needs to create a new international currency to replace gold. Every nation could still use the money inside the countries, but when a country traded, it could use this brand new currency. Keynes called the new currency banker. When you traded with another country, you could use banker, and there would be a central bank of the world to keep track of the banker, and they would make sure that no one was exporting too much or importing too much. It was utopian, but it was also a little selfish for Keynes because his plan was to base this global bank in London. And the new currency was better than gold for the British because Great Britain had sold most of its gold to fund the war. It was in the best interest to create something new. So that was Keynes' proposal. And Harriet Dexter White had a different idea. His big plan for the world also involved a kind of universal currency, not the banker. He thought it should be the US dollar. Harry Dexter White knows that the best way to ensure this is here at Bretton Woods. If could somehow get all the new international rules that all these countries were going to sign to include the dollar somehow, then every country here would have to use dollars. He never openly suggested that world trade should be based on the US dollar. What he did instead was he got written his euphemism into all the documents. Whenever he needed to talk about some form of international trade, he referred to the gold convertible currency. As in every country of the earth should peg their currency to some unnamed gold convertible currency. Of course, what country had the gold? The United States. The US had 80% of the gold of the world. At one of the committee meetings, the Indian delegate got fed up and said it was high time that the Americans explained what a gold convertible currency was. At that point, the British delegate, who was not Keynes, because Keynes was off dealing with the World Bank, his name was Dennis Robertson, fell into White's trap. He thought that they were discussing a minor accounting issue and suggested that for the sake of clarity they might simply say US dollars. White thanked him very much and said that the matter would be referred to a technical committee. Harriet Dexter White had the green light that he had been looking for. He ran this technical committee. The British suggestion that someone should just write in the word dollar, he took that and ran with it. The technical committee stayed all that night going through the relevant documents. That night, they went through the draft IMF Articles of Agreement, ultimately 96 pages, and changed every reference of gold convertible currency to US dollar. All the documents governing the new monetary system had the term US dollar written right in. Keynes didn't even know it was all happening. He was stuck in these meetings about the World Bank in another part of the hotel. Under the new agreement, basically every country would have to peg their currency in the US dollar. And in order to make this work, every country would have to keep a lot of dollars in their vaults as a sort of reserve currency. That way, if the currency went up or down, they could use dollars to stabilize it. And dollars would be the new anchor for trade. And these new organizations they created Bretton Woods, the World Bank and the IMF, they too would use dollars. In order to become a member of the organizations, you would have to pay a fee in gold or gold convertible currency. And then these organizations would lend these dollars to indebted countries at a cheaper rate. If you put a plaque up at Bretton Woods, this is all it would say. This is where the US dollar was crowned the supreme, unrivaled currency for the world. And no one other than Harry Dexter White really knew this at this time. Everyone was working at such a breakneck pace, no one had time to read over the documents as they were being written. John Maynard Keynes was struggling just to keep up. His health was not great. By this time, conference had stretched on for 3 weeks, and there was a push to finish up quickly. The food supplies at the hotel was running low. The ailing John Maynard Keynes managed to conclude the conference with an inspiring speech to send everyone home with. Keynes had not actually seen the final document. Delegates were presented with it for a signature as they were checking out of the hotel. Yeah, John Maynard Keynes did not read the final print until he had got back to Britain. He was reportedly furious, not specifically about the dollar provisions, but about all the little ways that he left the Britain had been screwed over by the Americans. What was laid out at Bretton Woods did work for a few decades. Everyone stayed pegged to the dollar. The dollar stayed pegged to gold. In 1971, famously, that goes away. But the dollar, by that time, is entrenched. It's the way that countries trade with each other. For 70 years, it has been the center of global economy. Harry Dexter White, the man behind it all, he did not fare so well in history. Harry Dexter White, it turns out, was moonlighting as a Soviet spy, passing some information to the Soviets. In 1946, White defended itself in front of a congressional committee. He died of a heart attack the next day. Although that is what Harry Dexter White is generally remembered for, the spy allegations, instead of the victory for the US dollar.